Hi, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and we are going to go over this model and go over some issues that are causing a lot of viewers a lot of problems. First, I just got a computer at work on my desk, and before, this is what I always use for everything. Well, I can't get into everything with this phone. And I found out that some of my comment questions are ending up in a spam file. Now, this won't even tell me anything in spam. I'm using Tool Studio, I guess it's called. And if you have sent me a comment question and I have not answered you, send it to my email, because I had no idea these questions were going in there and not getting answered. I answer every question and comment I get if I know I got them. And I did not know this was going on. Some of these questions are a year and a half old. I really feel bad. I'm sorry. And I found another issue using my computer. It seems that somebody's trying to ride on my name. We now have a second Jim's Fix-It Shop on YouTube. How he could pick the same name, I'm not sure. I have to send out some emails to Google and YouTube and find out what's going on. I am going to send him an email and let him know that he's going to have to change his name, or YouTube may just throw him right off, period, and he won't ever get back on. So if you're bored, send him an email and let him know that he's not really nice to steal someone's name. Nicely. Let's not harass the poor kid. Maybe he doesn't know he did anything wrong. Now, on this machine, I have my model out here. Let's tip this down. I've had a lot of people get a hold of me and say I was mowing my yard and it just quit moving. Well, one problem is right here. The thing in his fingers is the nut and part of this bolt that holds the wheel flange on. Once that bolt breaks, or if the nut comes off and the bolt falls out, your machine is going to quit moving. You're going to fool the differential and make it think you're going around the corner. Now, I don't know if you can see this whole thing or not. When I start this up, both wheels, or in this case wheel flanges, are going to be turning. You can see them both turning. Now, when you go around the corner, one tire slows down, or if you're turning a sharp corner, it will quit turning altogether. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have snow blowers, but typically a snow blower is positive traction. There's one axle going across, both tires are hooked to it, and when you get to the end of your driveway and you turn around to come back, this inside tire is going to dig a hole, because that's going to be spinning just as fast as the outside tire is. That's just the way those work. Some of the new fancy ones, they have flippers on the handlebars that you let go of, and it kicks the drive out on one side or the other, whatever flipper you let go of. My snowblower, and they also have flippers on the bottom, or levers, you have to hold up all the time to keep the machine running. If you let go of both of them at once, the engine quits. You can let go of one at a time, you're all right. My snowblower, I've had for 47 years. And when you let go of mine, it's a clutch, like a motorcycle. It takes off. It'll keep going until it runs out of gas. It doesn't really care. If you're in the way, get out of the way. If you want to stop it, you have to pull the clutch in and hold it in. Mine has absolutely no safety features on it, and that's the way I like it. It has no belts. It's all chain driven. And believe me, you're not going to stop it if you suck something up. It's going to spit it out the chute. I won't tell you what the man did that I worked with years ago with his snowblower. Let's just say his wife was not very pleased. Now on this, let's get both of these in view again. If you got this thing running, mowing your yard, and you're going to turn a corner and this tire stops, that tire keeps turning. That's so you can turn a corner, regardless of which way you do it. Now, if this bolt falls out and you want to put a little pressure on these to make it think it's sitting on the ground, they're both going to turn. Now if I stop this tire, that one's going to turn. But once the bolt falls out, the wheel flange and the tire is going to quit turning, but the axle is still spinning over here. I don't know if you can see that or not. So it's going to think you're turning a corner, and your machine is just going to sit there and it ain't going nowheres. So if your machine quits on you, this is more of a issue excuse me, an issue than you would think. This happens a lot. Pull your hubcaps off and look at that bolt. The man that sent me this picture, he was one of the few that emailed me and said my machine quit, and I told him, pull your hubcaps off and look. And sure enough, the nut and part of the bolt was in the hubcap yet. Now the older machines like this one, the hubcaps don't pull off that easy. You have to take the tire off. The old hubcaps, and I don't know if I got one around here. Yes, I do. This is the new style hubcap, and it just slides over the wheel flange. This is the old style hubcap. See the difference? This lip around here, this slides through the rim from the back side. And when you bolt the tire onto the wheel flange, it pinches that in there and it holds it in place. So you got to pull your tire off just to check that bolt. Not as convenient and as easy as the new ones are. After you've checked that and your bolt is in place, get this in here, then you want to check your clutch disc. That's the next big issue I have. Get this thing braced up in neutral. Doesn't really want to hold it open as far as I need it. Now, if you want to check your drivetrain to make sure everything is working, it's very simple. Lift the thing up on its rear bumpers. Grab a hold of this nut on your clutch disc assembly. Use it like a handle and turn your clutch. That is going to turn everything in the drivetrain just like the motor would be if it was running. If your tires are turning, then your drivetrain is okay. Now I have a lot of comments of people saying, oh, I turned one tire, the other one turns the opposite way. That's typical. That's what your differential does. So you can see the gears in there turning. If you turn this, the whole thing turns and the gears are stationary. They're not working. So turn that. If your tires turn, you're golden. If they don't, then that means either this gear down here is stripped out, this gear is stripped out, this chain is broken, or this chain is broken. Now, how do you tell which is what? You want to do is shift this thing into neutral. Let me put it neutral. And you want to loosen this clamp and slide your boot back so you can see your hexagon shaft. And do this again. If your shaft is turning like this one is, that's going to tell you that everything in your chain case is fine. The only thing in there is a number 35 link roller chain and 2 sprockets. And the chain case rides on bearings. The top are needle bearings, the bottom is ball bearings. So if that's turning, your chain case is all right. If it's turning and your wheels aren't, then you broke this chain probably. I have seen one machine where this gear down here just totally stripped right off. I don't know what they were doing with this thing, pulling stumps or what, but he had to replace that gear. This gear, when they get worn down to a razor edge, it's time to replace them. This one has about a 1/16 of an inch of flat left on it, but it's starting to roll a burr on the outside diameter. And that will contribute to other issues in here as all these burrs break off and get mixed up with the lubrication or whatever you have in it, and then it starts floating around and get into other places, then it causes other problems. So that's an easy way to check to see if your drivetrain works, just by grabbing this nut and turning this. So if you turn this and your hexagon shaft is not turning, the problem is in your chain case. Now, another thing you want to check is your clutch disc itself. This one you can still see it's in pretty good shape. Let me pause this and grab a couple discs and show you the difference. Okay, we got a couple here I want to show you. I buy Oregon blades, Oregon clutches. Get them off Amazon. Here's the number, and it will say drive disc with liner. I don't know why they call this a drive disc. The disc on the bottom of the engine is your drive disc. This is your clutch disc. But here is a brand new one. See how tall the rubber is sticking up on the disc? And no, I guess that's a used one. The inside's dirty. Well, let's open this up. I just love bags. What's ever wrong with boxes? Just open it up and now here's a brand new disc. Nice amount of rubber on it. Probably just, well, it's just about the same as this one. But this one you can see the liner in it. You have to have the liner to make this thing work. I had one viewer said, well, I just got a new clutch disc and it doesn't have a liner in it, but it works. It's not going to work very good, let me tell you. And it's certainly not going to climb any hills. This one someone sent me It's got the liner in it. It's dark, but you can still see the liner. But what's the difference between these hunks of rubber? This one is almost wore down to the steel. That one's definitely wore out. And he said when I put the new disc on, he said, wow, what a difference. I can believe that, because you have a limited amount of travel on this chain case as far as how the spring pulls it in to the drive disc. And you're missing about almost 3/16 of an inch on the side. That's going to take up, you're going to have your spring really tight to pull that in and make this thing work. Now the next issue you could have is the spring. On these older machines, I can't really get you up in there, but here's a clutch or a yoke right here. And this is a newer style because it has this bracket that bolts on the back of the machine. These older ones, they just stamped holes in the back of the rear case. I don't think you're going to be able to see them. Right here is a big hole, and they fold that up and punch a hole in it, and that takes the place of this. Now that's old school, and this is new. If you're trying to cut costs and make these things cheaper, why would they do this? No idea. But this clutch link is just like the old ones. Well, yep. Mine has 3 holes, and so does this one. The bottom has 2 holes. Now when you adjust your spring, you want to put this top, which I call this the top when it's standing up. It sits in there like this. You want to put the spring in the top hole. And on the bottom, you want to put the spring in the bottom hole. That stretches it as tight as this will allow it to stretch. And that alone will typically take care of your issues. If it's still not working the way you want it to, this fits in here like this. You've got room to drill 2 or 3 more holes and stretch that spring a little farther. And that will definitely help you out in traction. Another viewer sent me a picture, and his machine does not have the bushing. You can see the bushing on the inside. There's the plastic bushing, one on each side, and the bolts and nuts. Nuts are on the inside on this one. It's on the outside on this side. His did not have the bushing or the bolts on one side of his yoke. And he couldn't figure out why it wasn't running. It wouldn't go anywhere. Well, I told him it's not going to without that bushing in there and the bolt to hold this so it can pivot properly. And it was this side that was missing. So what that's going to allow this thing to do is it's going to let this side of the yoke swing out. And you're going to lose all the force that you need pulling that clutch into that drive disc. Without that part in there, you don't have much chance to climb up any hills or actually mow your yard very well. That was another issue. These springs themselves do get weak, and sometimes you just replace the spring will help a lot. Now I had one of these machines back here. I still got them sitting here. I got 3 of them. One is mine. These 2 are for sale. I noticed when I got this one in, they had, I can't even remember what they had adjusted wrong, but you had no clutch. As soon as you touched the clutch pedal, your brake locked up. And I can't remember what I had to do, but something was way out of adjustment. And to make it run so it would climb his hills, he put 2 springs on his yoke. And he's had them both stretched as far as he could. I guess that's another thing you could do. Now, a while ago when I first started doing these YouTube channel, I came up with the idea of bolting your clutch disc solid to the assembly. And it did work, because the early ones, that's the way they were made. Now we're talking back to Comets, and maybe the first few of these, when they got away from the Comets, was a solid clutch. And believe me, they did not slip. The only problem is if you had a bagger on the back, especially the double baggers with, and I'm talking from experience here, and it was full, you let the clutch out too fast. It's like driving a car. You have to let it out slowly. It would pop a wheelie. Now, most of you are not familiar with a double bagger. The single baggers on a snapper are short, low profile, and they're like flat with the seat. A double bagger has a hood on it that stands up about a foot, and to me it acts as a third bag. I fill that. When the bags get full, I just let it fill that up. I go out in the woods, open it up, sweep the leaves off the top of the bags, and dump them. Well, I was coming across my yard. Dang, I wish I had a video. And on my driveway, I'd come off the yard, and it's a little slope, well, a good slope, into the driveway. I would whip a Yui, and I would go back up the slope and get in the yard. Well, the bags were too full. And my yard's sandy, and it's got acorns, and it was way too much weight. And when I went up the hill, it came up until the bags hit the ground. And of course, I went off the back of the machine. Before I realized what was even happening, I was sitting in the driveway just as I was driving my snapper, and my snapper's going across the yard up on an angle because the bags are still dragging. So I get up, chase it down, push down on the front end, and jump on, and I went out and dumped the bag. But as I'm sitting in the driveway, I'm looking around, trying to see if anybody's seen what just happened. Because it happened so fast, I was off of that thing, sitting on the ground, and I never knew I came off it. But things happen. That's why the new machines have safety switches. If mine had a seat switch in it, it would have killed the engine, and it would have just sat there. It wouldn't have kept going across the front yard. The blade did stop because my feet came off them pedals. That was good. But crazy things happen. You just got to live with it, I guess. But bolting this thing solid will definitely solve all your issues. But you really got to be careful. The reason they went to this soft start assembly was because you can pop a wheelie and you can come right off the back of that machine, believe me. Talking from experience here. And I have a friend that's in, I can't remember what state, it's a southern state, South Carolina, Georgia, somewhere down there, and he rebuilds snappers and sells them. And he said the first thing he does is he orders an original solid clutch. I don't have one. I have one that I made years ago, but I don't have an original. And he replaces these soft starts with the original solid clutch. If you've got the band brake like this machine, this is an excellent brake. You can get away without this goofy little brake lever in here. This one I put back in. Typically I take them out, throw them away. And when you put your bolts through, you can leave the heads on the inside and there's no problem. But if this is the only brake you have, then I made a second video and it shows you how to use flathead screws and chamfer the holes so they're flush. Then you can use your brake arm in there without it catching on the bolt heads. But that, I think, would be a last resort to do that. There's other ways that you can get this thing to work properly other than doing that. But if you're having problems and you need to do that, it was one of my first videos, like back 1 to 10, somewhere in there. Now, if you want to find videos a little easier, I have made a video, number 306, that you can go to, and I explain to you how you, how you can go over to the About page, and you scroll down on that, and it will show you a file you can touch, and you can download a directory of all of my videos. And about 1.5 years ago, I went back through and I renamed all of them, and I gave them all numbers, 1 through 300, and I don't know where I'm at right now, tell you the truth. 310. This is going to be 311. And I have my secretary every once in a while catches that file up, and then you can go back in and print the last page, and you'll be up to date on every video I have. It just makes it a little easier for you guys to find what you're looking for, and me too, because after 300 videos, I can't remember all of them that people ask about. One of them is number 70. That will explain the drive system as far as adjusting the distance on your drive disc, how to check out things on your clutch disc and assembly, and how to tighten that yoke spring. As if your machine is running and you're just having problems going up a hill, 99% of the time, if you tighten that spring, your problem's going to be gone. So I guess that's about it. If you're having trouble shifting, shift this thing in reverse. Pull this boot back, clean this, and grease it. Shift this into 5th. That will help you get this boot back on. Take this one off, slide it back, clean this half the shaft, and grease it. It will shift so much better. Shift this over in reverse, and it'll be easier to get this boot back on than if you're trying to do it and you gotta stretch it. These boots are actually on here. I just cut them in half so you could see the shaft. Everything on here is cut in half. So I'm hoping that answers a lot of questions. Another one I get a lot is this dust cap. You can order these from Parts Tree, and you can get the new seals that are inside of it. You definitely want to add one to this side of your machine to protect that bushing. If sand gets in there, it's not only going to tear the bushing up, but sand has a tendency of embedding itself in the softer of the two materials. Then it acts as a grinding wheel, I guess, and it's going to destroy your steel axle. So keep your eye on that and keep it greased. There is a grease fitting here. Most people don't even know that. Without greasing this, that bearing, they call it a bearing, it is a bushing. You're going to wear that bushing out. And as long as we're on the bushing, let's turn this thing. If your machine is not shifting or it's not traveling, it's giving you problems, check this bushing. Take your wheel flange off. Pull your dust cap off. I can turn this. And you want to check to see how much slop you have right here. That's wiggling it back and forth right now. If it was on its tires, that would be slop up and down. That is wear in this bushing because it hadn't been greased. Now I've seen these wore so bad that it's all the way through the bushing and it's up into the steel fender 1/4 of an inch. And at that point, when you're trying to move or use your machine, what's going to happen is the edge of your chain case is grinding at this point on your drive disc. And then you know something's wrong. What is it? Check that bushing. That's a huge problem with these things. This bushing on this side gets lubricated from the lubricant that's in the differential. If you position the bushing properly, when you put a new one in, they'll have, the bushing goes in there, it's going to have 2 grooves cut in the bushing. Them grooves go up and down when your machine is sitting on the ground. So if your fender is like this and you're installing it, the grooves go horizontal. That way when it's sitting on the ground and you're throwing this lubricant around, it's going to run down the inside of this fender, it's going to find that groove, and it's going to run in and it's going to lubricate that shaft and that bushing. Them bushings on that side last a long time compared to this side. That's about all I wanted to go over tonight, is to try to help out a few of these guys that's having problems with their machine. Just all of a sudden it quit. This is some things you want to look for. And until next time, work safe. Please subscribe. Another thing I found out with this Tool Studio program I can get into, I have just hit 10,000 subscribers. And if you look right here on this page, it'll tell, you can't read it very well. It'll show you that my subscriber volume is 17%. So 82% of the people watching my videos, helping them out, saving money, are not subscribing. And I have a lot of guys ask me, do you have a Patreon, or can I help support your channel? All you have to do is subscribe. And Google eventually, with enough subscribers, will be supporting this channel, and it won't cost you a dime. And speaking of costing you, it's absolutely free to subscribe. And this tells me a lot of interesting tips. I have at this point $1,566,000 views. I wish I had 1 million subscribers. I could be doing a whole lot more with more subscribers. But that's the nature of this beast. Once you watch this channel and you fix your machine, that thing's going to be good for 20 years probably. This thing, the last time I rebuilt it, it lasted me about 20 years, and I didn't take care of it. I neglected all of the greasing and oiling that I should have been doing, that I talk about now in these videos. This is my 2017 that I just went through, and I want to get it out in service but I got to get rid of that 33-inch that's in the building because I don't have any place to park this, and I'm certainly not going to let it sit outside. And this room is getting way too full for 3 of these things. I got to sell them other 2. So that's it, my friend. Subscribe, please. Hit that thumbs up. That does help me too. And work safe, have fun, and keep on snapping. We'll talk to you soon. So long.